Hello again. Hello again. Welcome. Welcome to FlyingCloudZen.org's YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk about. Tea is good. Today we're going to talk about time and eternity. I think that's what I'm going to call this when I post it. Time and eternity, just because that sounds dramatic, doesn't it? The other way of talking about this is the way that the teacher Ken Wilber talks about it. He talks about it using the term no boundary moment. No boundary. So I'm going to give you a few things to think about, and this is going to be kind of a almost quasi guided meditation, I'm hoping. And before I jump in, I want to just acknowledge that I am, as teachers do, I am paraphrasing and borrowing from and stealing outright from many different Zen teachers when I offer this, including Ken Wilber. I don't know that Ken Wilber thinks of himself as a Zen teacher, but he's done a tremendous amount of writing on the meditative spiritual journey. He was a Zen practitioner for a long time. He also does a lot of stuff with evolutionary psychology and all sorts of stuff. So you can Google Ken Wilber if you want, and you'll see he's a tremendously prolific teacher. I'm not an expert in his work, but he wrote a beautiful book called No Boundary that I've actually used a lot. It isn't a Zen book, strictly speaking, but he talks about ideas that he learned about in a Zen setting and that makes sense to all of us as spiritual practitioners. So my great gratitude to Ken Wilber and to Zen Master Seppo and a lot of the other people that I'll be stealing from. Okay, so no boundary or time and eternity. What are we talking about? What we're talking about today is the nature of the present moment. And the present moment is a term that we hear a lot in meditation circles, a lot in the mindfulness community, certainly a lot in Buddhist community. We're hearing it now outside of all of those communities. The present moment is something that's become very kind of mainstream, even as mindfulness and meditation become more mainstream, kind of secular, like live in the now, right? That's something you've almost certainly heard, whether you've been studying spiritual stuff or Buddhism or not. It's something that we all hear now. So the present moment. And it's something that's worth looking at very carefully. It's something that's worth looking at very carefully because even the term present moment needs some unpacking. Why is it worth looking at? It's worth looking at because it'll help you gain a little bit of insight into your own experience of being alive. Why is that important? Insight? It's important from a Buddhist point of view because greater insight is equated with less suffering, which is to say, less misunderstanding, seeing something more clearly, less resistance, less constriction. Right? When we're living in relationship with things as they actually are, we tend to suffer less. That's it. So let's look at the present moment. To start with, even the term present moment is a funny one. I get why we have it because we like to distinguish present moment from past moment or future moment. Yeah, cool. I get it. Conventionally speaking, it's a good way of using language because we all tend to understand that time goes from the past to the present to the future. It's conventional consciousness, conventional understanding. Now things get unconventional. Strictly speaking, there really is only moment. There really is only moment. There isn't present moment because present does make it sound like present as opposed to past or present as opposed to future, and that those things are real. And what's interesting about Buddhism, also what's interesting about physics, is at some point it says, no, we can't find past and we can't find future outside of present. Upon actual investigation, we can only find present. So now we don't even need to call it present, actually. It's just moment. This is it. There isn't an end to this. There's not a beginning to this. There's just this. So that sounds super trippy, right? That sounds like particle physics or quantum physics or advanced Zen or something really, really crazy. And it isn't, actually. And it sounds crazy. I get that. What I'm encouraging for the course of this little talk that I'm giving is that we actually look at that directly. We actually look inside of our experience. So Schrodinger, the famous, what the heck was he? Scientist, physicist, theoretical, whatever it was that he was. I don't even know. Some of you science people can tell me. Erwin Schrodinger said, "The present is the only thing that has no end." Isn't that interesting from a physicist? From a scientist? The present is the only thing that has no end. That's a fascinating statement. Implied in that, at least I assume, is also the present is the only thing that has no beginning. So what we're talking about is eternity. We're talking about eternity because all of us understand that eternity doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's eternal. By definition, it's outside of the scope of time. Time meaning a beginning and change and movement and then an end. It's finite. It moves from here to there. It goes in a straight line. Time, time, time. Eternity is the opposite of that, right? And if we are, again, careful, meaning more attentive, we can discover in our own experience, Schrodinger was not crazy. Zen masters are not crazy. Physicists are not crazy, at least most of them. Eternity is not a philosophical opinion. Eternity is actually not a religious idea. It's not a dogma. It's also not, as I think a lot of us tend to think, an ideal state or an experience of consciousness that we don't currently have. Eternity is none of those things. The truth is, as my teacher says, it's actually so simple and so obvious and so omnipresent that we completely ignore it. We immediately look past it, right? So one of the things meditation can do is begin to help retrain us, our perceptions, our faculties of knowing, just enough so we begin to understand and also experience the eternal moment as this moment. Even when I say the eternal moment, you can feel something in you, can't you? Right, just those words, the eternal moment, that sounds religious, that sounds spiritual, that sounds exalted, that sounds lofty. Wow, the eternal moment. Right? That just it gives me a feeling when I say it. Present moment doesn't give me that feeling. That's funny because it's the same thing. Those are not two different things. So the correction that we need to make is when we think that eternity is everlasting time. That's how we tend to think of eternity. It goes on forever. That is a misunderstanding. Eternity is not everlasting time. Eternity is awareness, consciousness, what you are. Eternity is awareness that is without time. One of those ideas is it's everlasting time. Nope. We're letting go of time entirely. Eternity is awareness, consciousness that is without time, without the imposition of time, without the idea of time, without what the brilliant Catholic mystic Meister Eckhart said, without the taint and smell of time. Meister Eckhart was a deeply realized mystic in the Christian tradition, and so he taught the same thing that all deeply realized mystics in any tradition always teach. They always teach the same thing in different language, right? So please don't think whatever your tradition is has some sort of monopoly on enlightenment or monopoly on the divine revelation, because no, they don't. Just a human thing. We all can get there using whatever the path it is that we happen to have chosen. For Meister Eckhart, it was Christianity. For Zen Master Dogen, it was Buddhism. But he said, Meister Eckhart said, time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There is no greater obstacle to God than time. That's fascinating. Time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There is no greater obstacle to God than time. If I were to translate that into Buddhism, we'd say time is what keeps enlightenment from reaching us, and there's no greater obstacle to enlightenment or Buddhahood than time. So we'll go back to my main point here because I tend to go on. Correct our idea, right? Eternity is not everlasting time. It is not a philosophical opinion. It is not a dogma. It is not a spiritual ideal. It is nothing that is separate from this here and now, right? So the eternal moment, that phrase that moves me so, the eternal moment is a moment that is without time, a timeless moment, a moment that does not know past by definition. It doesn't know past and it doesn't know future. It doesn't know beginning and it doesn't know end. It's eternal. That makes sense, right? This is making sense to you. It doesn't know before and it doesn't know after. It doesn't have yesterday. It doesn't have tomorrow. That makes sense, right? It is an eternal moment. Therefore, it doesn't know birth and it doesn't know death. It's eternal, right? This is making sense. This is making sense. So all of us have had within our lives experiences where time did seem to disappear, right? A moment that was so complete in its captivation of us that we just sort of let go of our ideas about time and we just experienced the one thing happening. Right? We've all had that experience of just, oh, wow, yeah. Time seems sort of suspended as in those experiences, right? Time seems sort of suspended when I held that newborn for the very first time, or I saw the Grand Canyon for the first time. I made love for the first time. I walked out inside the snow for the very first time. I got on board a plane and whatever that thing was, it doesn't matter. I was so absorbed in the present that time seemed to disappear. So, the fact that that's possible means it's possible. That's possible. Nothing changed, just my perception of it. If we can just examine the present moment very, very carefully, we will start to see, which is to say, directly experience the truth that there is no time. Those mystics are right. There's no time. The present moment, this moment, is a timeless moment. And if you don't believe me, and I suspect that you don't, what I encourage you to do right now is see if you can find the beginning of this moment. See if you can find it. When did this moment, when did it start? See if you can find the beginning. When did this moment that we call the present, see if you can find when it started. Can you see it? Can you find it? Can you feel? So no matter how you search, and I actually encourage you to do this, do your meditation, set a timer, sit on a cushion, face the wall if you want, whatever it is you do. See if you can find the beginning of this moment. Because search as you will. I have done this many times. I wanted to test this teaching to see if it was true, because its implications were so profound. I have been unable to apprehend. I can't find it. I can't see it. I can't feel a beginning to this moment, to my experience of this present moment. I can't find a start. I can't find a beginning to this moment. That which has no beginning is unborn. It hasn't experienced birth. When did the present begin? Did it ever begin? Right? And now do the opposite. In that very same way, I encourage you to investigate your experience of this moment and see if you can find an end. I mean this with absolute sincerity. See if you can find it. Please see if you can find an end. Did it end? Could you feel it? Could you see it? Could you smell it? Was there an end? I have not found one. My experience has been to seek as you will, there is no ending to this present moment. And that which has no ending is undying. It's unborn, it's undying. It doesn't have a start, it doesn't have a stop. You will never experience an ending to the present moment. I can actually promise you that with 100% conviction, you will never experience an end to the present. The awareness of this is what we call in Zen no gap. Time creates the idea of time. Again, a useful convention, a necessary fiction, right? But the truth of the experience you're being welcomed into, invited into here is the truth of the teaching of no gap. There's no separation. There's no gap, right? So even though the forms, the sensations, thoughts, feelings, visions, sounds continue to thunder by at an incredible rate, bewildering, overwhelming sometimes. The present moment in which they happen is still indestructible. Wasn't born, isn't dying, doesn't start, doesn't stop, isn't ending, it's not touched. It's without stain. It's like the sky. All of the storms that have happened in that sky over the millions of years it's been there have left exactly 0 mark. The one sky contained them all. The one moment contained it all. All of it, right? It's something you can't miss, is the point. You can't miss the moment. It's not possible. It's the only thing that there is. You are never separate from it. It is infinite. You are never separate. It is without lack. It includes everything. There is no gap. So I will end this talk with a lovely quote from Zen Master Seppo, who says, "If you want to know what an eternity means, it is no further away than this very moment. If you fail to catch it in this very moment, you will not get it, however many times you are reborn in hundreds of thousands of years." The future moment you're wanting to show up and give you this doesn't happen. There's just this. That's what he's saying. Isn't that beautiful? I'm hoping that this is fascinating, but I'm also hoping that it cracks something open for you. An emotional place, an apprehension that comes from the heart. It's trippy up here. That's awesome. But I'm hoping it cracks something open in here that reminds you that you can't possibly miss your life and that the entirety of it is happening now, and that one moment of direct apprehension, one moment of just kindness, just sweetness, pervades everything. The perfume of that moment of, oh, there's something here. That moment, that sweet perfume pervades everything in the universe. It cannot, because this is eternity. This is eternity. The beautiful human life that takes place at the exact intersection of time and eternity. How fortunate we are. I hope this is of help to you. Okay, let me know what you think. Drop me a line at flyingcloudzen.org. I appreciate your feedback. Lovely to be with you, lovely to practice with you, and we'll see you again next time, okay? All right, thank you so much.